So today, Dan Aykroyd's nightmare vision of a shared Ghostbusters universe, a la the Avengers, is being realised. Don't get me wrong, ever since I was a kid, I've been a big fan of Dan Aykroyd, but that doesn't stop this from being a very bad idea. And as if to complement this, there is a whole universe of rumours bouncing around right now as to what the hell is going on. First off, there's a very official sounding report from Deadline which says that as well as the all-female Ghostbusters that is coming up next year, it's been shot this year, there's going to be an all-male-led Ghostbusters film which is going to be led by Channing Tatum and it's been put together by Dan Aykroyd and Ivan Reitman, who were behind the original Ghostbusters movies. It's been made by the same studio, Sony, and will come out a year after Paul Feig's original all-woman Ghostbusters film. And I can understand that there's outrage at this. The all-female Ghostbusters vision being ditched so quickly after it's just been put together. The rest of the talk from that very report from Deadline was all about trying to create a franchise. But that's not all. You see, the website Badass Digest had a similar reaction to the rest of us, but then it did a bit more digging and it found out what it believes are some new facts. Those include Chris Pratt stepping on board to join Tatum in the new male Ghostbusters film, which actually wouldn't necessarily be all male at all. Then also there will be a crossover movie between the Paul Feig all-women's Ghostbusters and this new Ghostbusters as well. It is strange that the new female Ghostbusters film hasn't even come out and I'm already talking about a new Ghostbusters film that comes out after that. And so after this Avengers style crossover there would also be a prequel, all of which fills me with dread. First off, whether this Channing Tatum Ghostbusters movie has all men in it or it's a mixture, it doesn't matter. Actually, I think this treats the original female Ghostbusters with a little bit of contempt. It's kind of saying that that's not enough, you kind of have to mix it up a bit for everyone to like it. It has this ring of it that someone somewhere is saying that they have a problem, a female problem. And I really hope that that is really not the case, but someone needs to get out there and say something fast. Because, like I say, whether this is a all-male Ghostbusters film that comes out after the all-female Ghostbusters film, or whether it's a mixed team, it creates two big problems. Well, either Paul Feig didn't know that there was going to be another Ghostbusters team coming out after his female Ghostbusters team, and if that's the case, then that undermines his vision. It's like Sony is saying that it's not enough, that actually these sadly underrepresented over 25 males, and being ironic, that they are somehow going to be left out of the franchise and not going to buy into it just because it has women in it. Either that or Paul Feig knew about this vision months ago. And if that is the case, then this means that this all-women Ghostbusters team is not as progressive as you think it is. Because for me, it was a great watershed moment. It was creating a female ensemble action supernatural adventure film that we hadn't seen before, and it was the studio and the creators basically saying, you either like this or lump it, this is what we're giving you, so move with the times and enjoy this new concept. But of course, if they all knew about this, then there's like some weird insurance policy built into it. Like they're going to be advertising the next film at the end of this all-women Ghostbusters film, and a bit of a tip of the nod to all those sexist males out there, saying, hey, don't worry guys, we've got you covered in the next movie. Which I think is pretty sad if that's true. You see, for me, I think there was an easy way to fix all this, which was if they knew that Channing Tatum was interested in a Ghostbusters film, and if they know that Chris Pratt is interested in a Ghostbusters film, then you do what they did in 1984. You basically give those guys supporting roles. Think about it. Remember what Sigourney Weaver was to the original Ghostbusters cast. She was already well established as a rising star. She'd already headed up the first Alien movie, a massive hit and a real groundbreaker. And yet here she was, willing to be this support to the funny guys. And actually, what a great compliment she was too. What a strong film that would have been. And yes, one or two of those people who were naysayers at the beginning, you actually do kind of win them over. I'm kind of against that, but hey, guess what? You know, I know it's a business, and you do win them over because they'll turn up for Chris Pratt and Channing Tatum, but they'll stay for the laughs from Kristen Wiig and co, the all-female Ghostbusters team. What a strong film that would have been. My other problem is, just because other studios have a shared universe doesn't mean you have to as well, with whatever you've got on your plate. This is where I think they should have turned the likes of Dan Aykroyd down and just brought in his talent for something else. He is a great comedy genius, in my opinion. Why do I say that? Why don't I say, well, you know what, go for it, make a Ghostbusters shared universe? Well, this is why. Because Marvel already had a shared universe before the movies even came out in the current form. The comic books had been out for decades and they were already sharing each other's worlds, characters were crossing over, X-Men were meeting Avengers, and although they haven't kicked it off properly, DC is in the same kind of boat. That's for other production companies and creative teams having these shared universes. Well, the other big one is of course Star Wars, and we don't even know if that's going to work. And they literally have a universe to explore. You know, spaceships. Despite any of the common sense that I'm sure a lot of the executives at Sony have, they're going with this whole shared universe shenanigans. And why? Remember, Ghostbusters didn't need a shared universe back in the 80s and early 90s. It had spin-offs in terms of cartoons. It's had a couple. It's had lunchboxes and toys and all of that gig. So, you know what? They don't need to have all different types of movies intersecting. It actually kind of makes no sense. Just make one great Ghostbusters film. Do what Disney does. They'd spend all their time making a film good. They know they're going to make money anyway, but they know they'll make more money if they just spend a lot of time on the script. Now we kind of move on to the Avengers Problem, as I call it, which is basically that it's very hard to emulate what they've already got. Think about it. The Avengers is made up of, in its current cinematic form, a Norse god, a billionaire inventor, a war hero, and a man who changes into a giant green thing. Very different characters who do very different things in their own movies who then come together. And they aren't all just off saving the world, although obviously that comes to be a big part of whatever they do. Captain America, he struggles with everyday life and also the very system that he swore to protect. Iron Man is part of the industrial military complex and often has to deal with ne'er-do-wells in that area as well. All the Incredible Hulk wants to do is find a cure, but he's constantly having to evade the very authorities who want to steal his secret. And Thor has tons of problems to deal with in his own world, and yet he comes to Earth to try and sort out those problems once they migrate over here. Different characters who do different things in their own world, who become more interesting when you put them together. But the Ghostbusters is a very different proposition, because they all do the same job. In some ways, although it's remarkable and filled with special effects, on the other hand, it's kinda not. They're meant to be like rent-a-kill men. There's even a joke that they're going to bust a cockroach at one point in the first Ghostbusters film, because that's what they are. They're rent-a-kill men at the end of the day. They're exterminators. They do quite a mundane job, an everyday job that a lot of people do, just that it happens to have a lot of special effects and ghosts in it. Superheroes, on the other hand, are larger than life. They're massive exaggerations of the people that we are. The clue is in super, so it is more exciting when you get them together. Don't get me started on the idea of doing a prequel either. I've done a whole thing on prequels and why they just don't work. I would ask you to go and see that video after this as well, because the truth is prequels don't work. They hardly ever do. There's one or two occasions where they do, but most of the time they just don't. And worse for me, they might not just be busting ghosts, which makes no sense. It's called Ghostbusters. Get over it. Focus on the fact that their job is to catch ghosts. It makes no sense. It's not time busters. It's not extraterrestrial busters. It's not interdimensional beings busters. It's Ghostbusters. So the danger is they might dilute the whole brand from the get-go, which means that even though we've come full circle now, even though I've tried to see it from the political in terms of sexual discrimination, even though I've tried to see it from the point of view of story writing, and even though I've seen it now from the commercial point of view, it doesn't work either, because now you're diluting your whole brand, because it makes no sense. Why would you completely lose track of what this franchise was about in the first place? Just focus on that. Make that good, instead of trying to branch out into stuff that isn't Ghostbusters at all. It makes no sense to me. Now at this point, I actually hate being negative, because the people that they brought on board are absolutely fantastic. Not only have you got Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd, who are the minds behind the first great Ghostbusters film, but you've also got the Russo brothers potentially, who are fantastic when they took on things like everything from Community over to Captain America the Winter Soldier. They've got real chops. They are brilliant at what they do. You've got the chap who wrote Mission Impossible 3, which was a highlight in the series and a real game changer. A great writer. And I like Channing Tatum, and I think Chris Pratt is brilliant. But my concern is, like I said, they've been brought onto the wrong franchise.